or the pint of Guinness with the creamy head on top, only came out in 1959. So prior to that, if you were getting Guinness, it was coming in bottles, like Fergus discussed earlier on. Tapping only came out in the 1950s. So the reason being, gas dispense systems got smaller, fridges got smaller, much cheaper, and these are much more easier than a big giant barrel on your bar. So it's much easier and more precise. So any beer that appears on tap is called a draft beer. The word draft means gas or air pushed. So very simply, you pull down on the tap, gas goes into your keg, you mix through a line, come out your tap. Now, most beers would use carbon dioxide because it's already in the beer, it's part of the brewing process. By adding extra carbon dioxide, you get more pressure, and that pushes your beer through the line. So most beers would use carbon dioxide, very similar to soft drinks, and that's why our beer is fizzy and foamy, traditionally. Now, the problem Guinness met with our beer is quite a dense body. Stout means heavy or strong, so the body is very dense on Guinness. When we tried the tap with the carbon dioxide, we ended up with lots of foam. It took a very long time for the beer to settle. So we need to create an easy pour system that everyone can have accessible to, and it was a much quicker process. So a brewer on site called Michael Ash, who was an English brewer, also a mathematician, was very interested in gases. So he was trialing different ways of getting our beer to come through the line. And eventually, in 1959, he added a new gas to the beer. So I said most beers use carbon dioxide. We don't. 75% of the gas that gets into Guinness is nitrogen. Now, nitrogen doesn't chemically bond to liquid. It's only 60% soluble, and when the bubbles try to leave the beer, they get stuck in the surface tension of the beer and they cluster. That's why Guinness has a creamy head on top. Start off anyway, so the first step, your glass. Make sure it's cool, make sure it's clean. If you're not sure it was meant for the beer, quick tip, look for the name on the glass. Usually helps, right? So when you're in doubt, match your glass up with your beer, okay? The next stage, most people use this tray and they put the glass down and pour. We never do this because the glass is too far away from the tap, so lots of air is going to get in. The air is going to make the head of your beer pop up really quickly, and again, you have to wait a long time for the beer to settle. So what we do is we angle the glass close to the tap. The perfect angle for beer is 45 degrees. If you're ever unsure, if you have a branded glass, look for the name on the glass again, and use this as a target. Aim it underneath the nozzle, you'll get a perfect 45 degree angle. So aim your beer to hit the name of the beer. You can't go wrong. Now, nitrogen, as I said, is a dormant gas. So between the nozzle and the tap, we install a little metal plate called a restricting plate. And what this will do is help create our bubbles because nitrogen is dormant. So when we pull it down, the gas goes into our keg like a regular beer and it comes through the line. Now, the beer hits the plate. That knocks the nitrogen bubbles out of solution and starts to create these tiny bubbles. It filters through the holes and creates even smaller bubbles. So by the time the beers hit the glass, it's been knocked out of solution, ripped into tiny bubbles and foamed. This is why Guinness pours light brown. It's not light brown at all. The nozzle has just created 3 million nitrogen bubbles. And they're going to go through your beer and they're going to create your head. So when you pour, you'll see, you'll hear a hiss. It's the gas going into the beer. Very important that you open it fully. Once we hit the name Guinness, we're then going to kind of straighten the glass up. And kind of roughly between middle and top of the harp, we stop. So there's two of us. So I'll do one for each end of the bar so you can see. Can you all see that okay? Yeah, perfect. And then same for yourself. So golden harp underneath, straight down, get the gas in. Okay. When we get to the name Guinness, we're going to straighten it off. And then between middle and top of the harp, we're going to stop. Two questions we always get asked at Guinness. What's happening inside the glass? And why didn't you fill my pint? Okay, so what's happening inside the glass is we're after injecting the nitrogen. So there is an old wives' tale that the gas falls on Guinness. It does look like that. You can't change physics. All gas rises. So what's happening is the shape of the glass pulls some of the bubbles down, but they are going through the center. And as they pass each other, they clash, creating this kind of weird sand effect. Now, it will take 90 seconds for nitrogen to separate out of the liquid. So whether you're pouring a pint, 2 pints, a half pint, 4 pints, you're waiting 90 seconds. Unfortunately, it does look a little bit like paint drying, but you have to wait a little bit extra for your Guinness. Now, why didn't I fill it to the top? Automatically, people think the widest part of the glass is the top, because that's where you drink from. It depends on the shape of the glass. Beer glasses are called tulip glasses, so they're based on the shape of a tulip flower. They slightly bow in and out. So this bow in, so the widest part of the glass is called the bulb of the glass. So So if you're ever unsure, if you run your finger up, when it locks in, that's the widest part. And for our case, between middle and top of the harp. So by pouring to the widest part, you have enough room for the head to form nice and evenly. And then the slight restriction will stop the head from overgrowing. So really the first part of the pour is creating that really nice head on your beer. And then once it's created, you're then going to fill it up again. If you ever want to know if you've poured it correctly, here's a quick tip for you. Look at the glass. If you can read the name Guinness, and the harp is sitting on a cloud of white, pour it to the right level. If you pour it and you can't read the name Guinness, you've under-poured the beer. That's a quick tip for you. So, you see it there? You see the harp? Now, after 90 seconds, the beer will be nicely settled. All you want to do now is bring the head to the top. This is the last part, and it's the one that most people get wrong still, believe it or not. So they take their pint, and what they do is, they go to pour again to fill it. If you pull down on the tap again, you're injecting a full surge of nitrogen again, which is going to take 90 seconds to separate out again. That's far too long to be waiting. And also by pulling down, the amount of gas you put in, you've already formed your head. What can happen is the head will be puffed above the glass and it bleeds over the side, which is really unattractive. You don't want it to spill. So we want it to settle really quickly and not spill. So here's the tip. Between here and the keg, the line is full of beer and it's always pressurized. The only thing stopping us from losing a full keg of beer is this nut here. If I undo this nut, you're going to lose a full keg of beer, right? So we can actually relieve the pressure on it by pushing back on the tap. And that will relieve some of the pressure and let some of the beer come up. So we're going to do that to top it up. We're going to top it with more beer, less gas. We're going to pull the beer through the line, but we're not giving the full surge of nitrogen behind it. So what you do is you hold it straight, you push back, and you bring it to the top of the glass. And what you'll notice is it's not going to spill. Be ready in like 10 seconds, and that's your perfect pint. So hopefully that makes sense to you in the 6 steps. Now, I'll show you one more time. Just hold it straight, push back on the tap. So, when people ask you how long does it take to pour a pint of Guinness, it takes you 15 seconds to fill it, 90 seconds to settle, and just under 15 to top it up. Add that together, you get 119.5 seconds for your perfect pint of Guinness. So there you go.